The Israelite history all started with a famine, which led them to Egypt. The Pharaoh later put them into slavery because their numbers got too great and he was afraid of being taken over. After about 400 years of slavery, Moses and Aaron delivered the Israelites out of slavery with the 10 plagues. After the final plague, the Pharaoh finally let Moses and his people leave Egypt. Moses and Aaron later led the Israelites through the Red Sea into the desert. When they get into the desert, Moses goes onto a mountain and receives the 10 Commandments from God. After going into the desert, the Israelites wander for 40 years, moaning and grumbling about anything and everything, including their food and water source. At first, God gives them what they want, but later the Israelites keep complaining. God finally punishes them and tells them to stop complaining. After wandering through the desert for 40 years, the Israelites finally reach the Promised Land and begin taking over. But they do not remain faithful and do not completely conquer the Promised Land. After settling into the Promised Land, the era of the Judges begins. Some famous judges included Ehud, Deborah, Samson, and Samuel. Samuel was the last judge, and he was the one who anointed the first king of Israel, who was Saul. During his anointing, he was so afraid of becoming king that he hid in a pile of bags. The highest point of Saul's reign is when he defeated the Philistines in a major battle. But the pressure of being king got to him. He eventually committed suicide while on the battlefield by falling on his own sword. David's anointing was also unusual. He was the youngest and smallest son of Jesse. During David's reign, he was beginning to be recognized when he defeated the Philistines and Goliath at his first major battle. The high point of his reign was when he made the Davidic covenant with God. The covenant said how his son will build the temple, his line will rule forever, and he will have an eternal king. Although David was a great king, he did not have a great end to his reign. One of his sons, Absalom, betrayed him and tried to take over the throne by force. David's affair with Bathsheba was definitely not a great end to his reign. David's other son, Solomon, had to later take the throne back from Absalom and claim his rightful place. Solomon was a king known for his wisdom and wealth. He was also the one who built the temple, which was the climax of his reign. Although Solomon was faithful to God, he had many foreign wives, which led him astray to idolatry. After Solomon died, Israel split into 2 separate countries, Rehoboam in Judah and Jeroboam in Israel. Israel was later invaded by Assyria and was taken over and sent into exile. Assyria then turned their attention to Judah, who failed in taking Jerusalem due to Hezekiah's faithfulness. After Assyria failed to take Judah, Babylon later overtook Assyria. After Babylon overtook Assyria, they later turned their attention to Judah and successfully destroyed the temple. They later sent Judah into exile, where they wouldn't return until the early 500 BC.